Oh, now she records it.
Do your little dance.
But on the way over, and hello,
Don't
if you
stand
just,
up though.
we've been talking and Tina forgot to hit record. On the way over, though, we actually had a few really, I'll tell you the other one that we had on that particular journey. But we pulled up for camp at what I would estimate would be the Great Australian Bights, sort of like this half moon, this crescent moon shape. Like, I think the Aboriginals say that, like, the spirit took a bite out of the land or something. There's some sort of story about it. They have a story for everything. We stood pretty much right on the edge there, and we had a little camp, and all around us was dingoes. And they're not like, you think of dingoes as dogs, right? Like just dogs, and you tend to think domestic dogs. These are really skinny, hungry. You can see all their ribs sticking out, and they're ready to take your hand off if you try to pat them. All right, so we had this whole thing, and I stood right on the edge of the thing. It was literally like being at the edge of the world. It was quite a bizarre experience to, and I'm thinking the analogy in my head is edge of the world, edge of my consciousness, all of this sort of thing. But anyway, you can make anything into anything, but doesn't mean it's so. But one of the other cool things that happened on that same trip was when we got to Melbourne. I think it was Melbourne. Can't remember the lady's name where we stayed in Melbourne. Anyway, we stayed in Melbourne for like 2 days or something, but just on the outskirts of Melbourne, when we were heading south, Sienna started to freak out. She had a lot of energy going on. I mean, she's sitting between me and Gina, right? So Gina's a beautiful association. She's totally just in the heart space all the time, just totally just heart space. That's how I picture her. And Sienna's sitting between the two of us, like, and we're just like yada yada yada. And Sienna's fairly new to the course, and she's got all this energy going on. I can feel it, Gina can feel it, whatever. And Sienna's like, I don't know what's happening to me. She starts crying in the front of the truck, and like, I don't know what's happening to me, and all of this thing. And so we knew we had to pull over and stop somewhere. So we found this football field, or this sports oval, on the outskirts of Melbourne. And we pulled over there. There was no one on the field. There was no cars in the little car park. The place was like deserted, like, I forget what time of the day or whatever. It was early morning, I think, about 9 or 10. But anyway, the three of us, we went out into the middle of the football field and took the course book with us. And the three of us sat and we were reading something. I think I've told you this story before, have I? Have you guys all heard this story? Oh, Anna hasn't. Hey, Paula with the bed hair. Look at her. She's looking great. You just missed my bits, apparently. So we went and sat in the... That could be the end of salvation, Tina.
Seriously, you guys.
Seriously, like... We went and sat in the middle of the football Course in Miracles. And we didn't notice the car pull up next to ours, like 50 meters away in the car park, but this woman walked over with a Bible, right? It's like, how random is this? She had a Bible, and I forget what she had it open at, but she was reading aloud. And the three of us are sitting in our little circle, and she's walking around and around us, reading aloud from the Bible. And at first I'm like, this is a bit weird. Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I'm trying to fathom the whole thing that seems to be going on. And I thought, all right, if she walks around one more time, I'm going to invite her to sit with us and read, like, and whatever. I knew she was reading from the Bible. And so she did. She walked around us again and again. And I said, would you like to join us, like, sit and read and whatever? And we had a really amazing moment there. And she told us what she was reading, and we told her what we were reading, and we had this thing. And she was a member of some, is it the Pentecostals? They all got their hands in the air. The thing, she was a member of a big Pentecostal church somewhere in Melbourne. And she said, we've got a celebration on tonight, da-da-da-da-da. And Sienna really wanted to go. She needed to let go of some energy, right? She needed the whole thing. And we went there. I'd never been to it. They're all speaking in tongues, like blah, 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 you know, which is nothing really. This is another delusion in the thing. But down the front, right down the front, they had a live band playing music and people are doing the whole worship and the woohoo and all of this. And Sienna was straight down into it. Like she just went straight down there, hands in there, and she had her release, you know. So it was like God supports you wherever you go. Like it's just amazing. Like the witnesses to truth and the witnesses to your own particular process just show up when you need them. You know, it's like it's a really, really amazing and beautiful experience to know that God supports me wherever I go. I'm sustained by the love of God wherever I go. Whatever I need, he will supply it. And in that instance, Sienna needed that thing, and Gina and I were totally grateful, you know, like she needed that whole congregational support mechanism, and, you know, it was freaking awesome. But we had all sorts of little things like that. So our journey, Tina, is going to be according to your script, whatever it is that, you know, it's going to be pretty cool.
It's going to be pretty cool.
I know, it'll be pretty cool.
You were talking about Pentecostal worship, and you had said something, I think, in your live, maybe, about Greg Sakra and about how are his joinings. They're a little like that. I mean, it's more like a worship service than a satsang. It's kind of cool.
Okay, well, I don't even know what a satsang is. I mean, that's what you just called.
I mean, yeah, but so it's not really, yeah. It's like he does some talking, but it's, you know, he uses music and stuff, and
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Well, that's kind of how it was at the Healing Center, you know, like we'd do this sort of live. It wasn't. So here's the thing, right? I just want to clarify some stuff here about this because you may encounter it in your own particular. So talking in tongues, right? The speech of the angels and all of that sort of stuff. When we were in that church, right? Now I've had an experience of talking in tongues, and I tried to say something to somebody one day, and just a whole load of blip up, blip out come out of my mouth, and I'm like, what the hell? Maybe I've got a thing. And I've heard other people do it in session, right? I don't know whether it's ancient Hebrew or whether it's whatever the hell it is, but all minds are connected and there's this whole thing. But when I was in that Pentecostal church with those people, there was a woman right beside me who was fervent with just talking this, whatever it was. And I could tell it wasn't naturally flowing out of her. She was like, she'd mastered the art of doing it or whatever. It wasn't a spontaneous thing. And then I noticed that a lot of people who weren't down the front, who were still standing up in their spaces, in their seats, was doing it. They were all talking in this kind of gibberish, you know. And I love the line in the Course where Jesus says, it's hardly helpful to talk in tongues if nobody understands what you're saying. You know, it's like Jesus is very practical. But anyway,
that's what they say in the church too. They say that if you're speaking in tongues, that you shouldn't speak in tongues unless there's someone there that can understand what you're saying.
Right.
But they teach it at the same time. They teach you how to do it.
Here's the thing: you can't teach it, right? You
Yeah,
can't teach.
Exactly.
It comes upon you naturally when you enter into a certain frequency with the divine. Something just occurs, and you can call that phenomena. You can call that whatever you want. But I've had it once, just briefly, and I've known other guys that I've been with who've also done it, you know. And the thing also with Sai Baba, you know, like the ash that used to fall from his hands, and everybody said he was a charlatan and whatever. And one day we were in session and Brent had his hands up, and like we used to do that, but your hands would just go up automatically. You could be standing with your hands by your side, and all of a sudden they just go woo, as if somebody else, as if a ghost or something lifted your hands up. Just energetically, you would feel your arms go up in the air, and it's like mudras, you know, the particulars of the fingers. And you see lots of pictures of Buddha and Jesus doing different sort of mudra things. There's whole charts and whole teachings about mudra, but that happens automatically when you reach a certain point of consciousness in meditation. You'll be sitting there with your hands just normally flat or together in your lap or whatever, and you'll just feel your fingers curl as if some kind of like that, as if some kind of thing happens, right? It's the same thing. And we were in session one day, and Brent was standing beside me, and I'm like looking I had my eyes open and I'm looking like, what the hell's going on with him? Because he has ash falling out of his hands. Like it was coming out of nowhere, like literally coming out of nowhere. So is Sai Barbara fake? Like did he have some trickery there or whatever? It's like, I don't think so, but there's a lot of phenomena that goes on in the spiritual realm. And it's like all of it affirms the process. All of it gives you some kind of like moment where you're like, wow, I've read about this, and it just continues to solidify in your own mind the process and the principles and everything that you're about. And you can sort of see it at work, and it's kind of like, it's really cool. But it's definitely one of those things, getting out of your comfort zone and stepping into purpose, which is what I've been writing about. That was my thing this morning. So that's for the back of the truck. Anyway, enough chit chat. Francois, Anna, Paula. Can't remember what we were talking about with all of that, but something. Anyway. How's your week been, Kev?
It's been a bit mixed. It's been pretty good, but a bit
Pushing
mixed.
a bit mixed. Mixed is good. Mixed is good. I like it when people are up and down. I've had an up and down week. In one of those weeks. Paula, you good? Oh, we can't.
You're on mute.
You're on mute. Where are you? Are you under a sheet or something? Have you got a blanket fort?
You're still on mute.
We'll come back to Paula.
Can you unmute? Let me see.
We can't hear you, Paula. You're on mute. Your microphone. See the.
There you are. There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, mine's been good. I've had a mixed blessings and, up and down sort of thing, but good.
In up and down.
Yeah, pretty good.
Anna. Fuck you.
Yeah, kind of the same, ups and downs. Lots of opportunities to get out of my comfort zone. So I'm going to say yes to those things, and think I'm going to sell my house here in Florida and move away. So
Nice. You need to do that, actually. It's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Play.
So processing that.
Move to LA and hang out with Tina. She'd appreciate the company.
Yeah. Thinking more of the country lifestyle, move to Missouri, southern Missouri. Yeah. We'll see.
Is that where they talk funny? Like hillbilly, like
I don't think so.
like Deputy Dog? Deputy Dog?
No.
Was that Tennessee? Where's the hillbillies at in your country?
Well, where I'm moving,
Tennessee.
where I'm going to move to is kind of
Tennessee.
around Tennessee and
Rednecks, hillbillies, all of that.
yeah.
What about West
Warm
Virginia?
today. It's warm today.
Warm yesterday.
Missouri,
good.
what's Missouri? Missouri's beef, yeah.
You got to make advantage of your ups and downs. Like you can't afford to miss them. It's a good thing. The temptation, of course, when you have ups and downs is to want to adjust. And I'm not saying don't sell your house, but the temptation is to want to adjust. You tend to go up and down and up and down. And the closer you get to God, the more erratic it's going to feel and the more out of control you're going to feel, because the energy is going to be stronger.
Yeah.
Right? The closer you get to that portal, that where the original error occurred / didn't occur. The closer you get to that in your own mind, the manifestations of getting closer to that are going to show up in your dream, show up in your world, but not in the way that's going to reflect God, but in a way that's going to reflect more your insanity, which is a better opportunity for healing. So when you're in this healing, it's like the old saying, don't fuck with metaphysics. When you're in this healing process, you really can't afford to be missing those forgiveness opportunities.
Yeah.
You have an up and a down. It's like, man, take the time to be still. Take the time to breathe and process that whole thing and practice that moment of forgiveness and give it to God.
Yeah.
You know, the mind gets really manic. The mind gets really like just full on, and the anxiety, the existential anxiety that comes up, and it's like the more. So this is how it works for me. I can't say for you. I know it's the same way because we're all just one mind, but the particulars might come across to you differently. But the more you forgive, right, which is a leap of faith, the more you forgive, the more faith you get, right? Because you can see in retrospect, oh, I was able to forgive this, that, and the other. So when something that seems to be heavier or more energetic comes along, you have the faith to be able to go through it because, oh, well, I could forgive those little things. I can forgive this bigger one. Now, the biggest act of forgiveness, of course, is forgiving God. Right? I have to forgive God for giving me the free will to get myself into this pickle in the first place. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's but like you're forgiving yourself in that action because you are God. And it's kind of hard to fathom that I got myself into this pickle because the ego mind always wants to blame. It always wants to outsource blame. And as you get closer and closer to that moment of realization in your own mind, the leaps of faith required seem to become bigger and bigger. The situations become apparently more dire and more drastic. But remember that you're only looking at the same thing in a different set of clothes. Right? It's still one idea of separation, disguised differently as something like, oh, well, I had an unsettling relationship when I was younger and I've forgiven that. And now there's a freaking earthquake or a fire in Maui. You know, I have to forgive all of that or whatever. And like it seems to take on massive proportions. But you got to remember, you're forgiving the entirety of the dream. You know, it's like I can't just forgive myself for the things I don't like. I have to forgive myself for everything I do like as well. And that's also part and parcel of being vigilant for whatever it is that occurs to you along the way, because we all have our temptations. And there's always going to be these things that we think we would prefer rather than being still and processing. Maybe I'll go and have a milkshake or, you know, like I was sitting with Joe the other night and, man, we were down the pub and I had a couple of whiskeys and it was just what I needed at the time, but I knew it was just energy passing through and I should have been still, you know, I should have just be still and whatever, but it had been a hell of a week, you know, like the whole thing. So I had a whiskey and I think it was the next day it got released. So that was kind of like, and now I feel awesome again. But it is what it is. But note to self, don't waste those moments. Don't waste your pain. So what are we doing today, Tina? Book man, are we still online with the book man?
Oh, I don't know.
All right.
I'll talk to him on Monday. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Lesson 26. Who's got a book there? I don't have a book. And I don't want to stand up again because apparently,
please. Stay seated. You'll thank me later, you guys.
Lucky you weren't recording then, apparently.
No, you're lucky I wasn't recording. Little material for my blackmail.
Nothing like a good blackmail. It's like being put into the wedge of the paradox, being blackmailed. Salvation's kind of like blackmail.
Somebody got 26?
Yeah, lesson 26.
Small book or the big book?
No, the big book.
Big book.
Viviana has it there.
Yeah. Waiting for her.
Let's read it.
My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. It is surely obvious that if you can be attacked, you are not invulnerable. You see attack as a real threat. That is because you believe that you can really attack. And what would have effects through you must also have effects on you. It is this law that will ultimately save you, but you are misusing it now. You must therefore learn how it can be used for your own best interest rather than against them. Because your attack thoughts will be projected, you will fear attack. And if you fear attack, you must believe that you are not invulnerable. Attack thoughts, therefore, make you vulnerable in your own mind, which is where the attack thoughts are. Attack thoughts and invulnerability cannot be accepted together. They contradict each other. The idea for today introduces the thought that you always attack yourself first. If attack thoughts must entail the belief that you are vulnerable, their effect is to weaken you in your own eyes. Thus, they have attacked your perception of yourself. And because you believe in them, you can no longer believe in yourself. A false image of yourself has come to take the place of what you are. Practice with today's idea will help you to understand that vulnerability or invulnerability is the result of your own thoughts. Nothing except your thoughts can attack you. Nothing except your thoughts can make you think you are vulnerable. And nothing except your thoughts can prove to you this is not so. Six practice periods are required in applying today's idea. A full 2 minutes should be attempted for each of them. Although the time may be reduced to a minute, if the discomfort is too great, do not reduce it further. The practice period should begin with repeating the idea for today and closing your eyes and reviewing the unresolved questions whose outcomes are causing you concern. The concern may take the form of depression, worry, anger, a sense of imposition, fear, foreboding, or preoccupation. Any problem as yet unsettled that tends to recur in your thoughts during the day is a suitable subject. You will not be able to use very many for any one practice period, because a longer time than usual should be spent with each one. Today's idea should be applied as follows. First, name the situation. I am concerned about. And fill up the blank. Then go over every possible outcome that has occurred to you in that connection and which has caused you concern, referring to each one quite specifically saying, I am afraid this will happen. I am concerned about getting sick and not being able to work. I'm afraid that I will not be able to provide for my daughter, and this will happen. And she will suffer. If you're doing these exercises properly, you should have some 5 or 6 distressing possibilities available for each situation you use, and quite possibly more. It is much more helpful to cover a few situations thoroughly than to touch on a larger number. As the list of anticipated outcomes for each situation continues, you will probably find some of them, especially those that occur to you toward the end, less acceptable to you. Try, however, to treat them all alike to whatever extent you can.
Good, that'll do. So Anna, the ones that occur to you towards the end will be less acceptable. Okay, so in this mind searching period, it's a snapshot of the whole of the process of healing. The whole of the process of healing, despite how Jesus talks about it and puts it into words in the book, the process is the same. You're seeking out your thoughts. You're seeking out the blocks to truth. The things that you're aware of that disturb you and that upset you, initially are quite superficial. They're the things that are obvious, this person, that situation, whatever. And then, like it just said in that lesson, they'll become less acceptable towards the end of the mind searching period because you're going deeper. At first, you come into contact with the things on the surface. That's every mind. That's every person. If I say to you, think of someone that upsets you, you think of a person. It's the easiest thing to come up with, pretty much. Or the neighbor's barking dog or something that's on the physical level. As you go further and further, the ideas that you encounter become less acceptable because they begin to fall into the realms of belief and faith. You start to encounter ideas about your position in life or your position in the realm, let's say, from a spiritual perspective, where I'm doing this to myself, the whole thing. It's like, I don't want to accept I'm doing this to myself. I want someone else to be the perpetrator of my pain and me to be the victim. That's the whole picture. God is doing this to me. That's the biggest. That's about as far as you can get. And we don't want to accept that God is doing this to me, or perhaps we do want to accept that God is doing this to me because God is everything. God is the source. I can't look for a higher blame than that. But because I don't remember God and because I fundamentally don't have any memory of the fall from grace or the original error or any of that stuff, it's like everything regarding those kinds of thoughts falls into the realm of belief and faith and possibility. So it takes a lot more effort. It takes a lot more willingness, a lot more determination to be still and to attempt to fathom the nature of those particular circumstances as you go along. The grievance that you might have with Mrs. Jones over the fence about her dog or whatever, man, that's easy. That's on the tip of your tongue. But it's like, let me try and cast my mind to a place where a tiny mad idea, it's like you'll never find the tiny mad idea because it was healed in the resurrection. It was actually healed in the moment that it occurred. But in time and space, the idea of that healing is presented through the notion of the resurrection. But as you go in your own, and if we look at it as a linear progress, if we look at it as a linear process, it really, salvation and healing really isn't linear because all time's happening at once. But if we look at it as a linear sequence for a second, you start off with lesson 1 and you've never heard of A Course in Miracles before and all of these things. Oh yeah, I can apply that to little Mrs. Jones next door, and I can apply that to my high school teacher who was mean to me, and I can apply that to whatever it is, all the worldly situations, right? When you start to get into the non-worldly situations, it requires not more honesty because you can't put your finger on it, so you can't be honest about it. But it requires more open-mindedness. It requires more willingness to be shown and all of these things. So you can actually get in touch with the frequency or the emotional taste, I don't even know how to talk about this part, but you can get in touch with that which is within you, but which you have hidden from yourself. It's like there's a signature. So if I tell you that the tiny mad idea was your fault, right? Specifically, and it's like, really? And this is the Sufis. The Sufis have this as their point of total operation, right? The Sufis are blameworthy. They are to blame. And not the student, but the master reaches a point of being completely blameworthy, right? Beyond that, there's no more teachings, right? I am to blame, not with guilt implied, but with responsibility implied, right? I am to blame for the world. I am to blame for separation. Now, trying to find that in my mind, how do I even deal with that? How does that even make sense to me? I just thought life was being born and then dying at the end. And then now I'm told this whole other thing, like I'm keeping the Christ captive in order to perpetuate the remnants of a dream that represents separation from God and ends in pain, suffering, and death again and again and again. It's like, how do you get in touch with that? Because that's, you know, we think Adolf Hitler was bad or whatever. That's like a hideous perspective. Why would I do that to myself and to my brothers? Right? You can't encompass that kind of depth, that kind of sorrow, I guess you could. There's a certain kind of a sorrow about it. There's a certain kind of ache, a certain kind of pain that goes along with that, that absolutely crushes you, absolutely brings you to your knees. And that's where the dark night of the soul is. But it's also right where the prayer of your heart is that God himself put there. But the whole process of going through healing is a step-by-step chipping away of the iceberg. So by the time you start to look at those sorts of ideas that don't have a temporal position, you've already grasped the idea of healing. You're already making connection with the Holy Spirit. And those ideas just flow through you no differently from Mrs. Jones' little dog over the fence kind of ideas. They just seem to have more weight, right? But what is one illusion and what is another illusion? There is no difference between them. There is all illusions. But in the world, in your experience, when you start to tap into the non-physical things in your own thinking and those kind of like associations you have with that, it's going to show up in the world as crazy shit because you don't know how to process it, right? And because your mind fundamentally is always projecting, you're going to be projecting stuff that just doesn't seem to fit in anywhere, and you're going to be looking at it and you won't have any idea what to make of it. You'll be like, what the hell? What am I even, what is this? You know, like, what am I? But the natural tendency for people or of the mind that doesn't understand what it sees is to recoil from it, or to ridicule it, or to judge it, or to laugh about it, or to try and deal with it in a way that actually seems to validate or make it okay that you don't understand. Okay? And we've all had those moments. Right? I remember my friend, we were in the hardware store, and when we were children, and a little boy in a wheelchair came up beside us in one of the aisles, and my friend Mark recoiled from that boy in a way that I looked at him, I'm like, what is wrong with you? It's just a kid in a wheelchair. He actually ran out of the store. His mind couldn't process with the idea of a damaged body. Right? He couldn't fathom it. And that's only on a very physical level. So when stuff you say, you know, like I'm going up and down, I'm having the ups and downs and the ins and outs, as we all do, they're all the same up and down, and they're all the same in and out. Right? Don't judge the form, apply the principle. Applies to even those non-temporal, non-physical things that seem to occur. And when you start to get into that territory of the non-physical, you won't be able to put your finger on it. You won't be able to say what it is. You'll just have to offer it to the Holy Spirit. You'll be like, I don't know what this is, Lord. I don't know why I'm upset about this person's situation or event. I can't find any logical, reasonable reason why this particular event grieves me or whatever, but I have a thing about it. Right? It's no different than any other thing. But the more you get, when you do your mind training, the more you get into the non-physical nature of things, looking at your relationship with God more, like the idea of a non-physical God rather than the brotherhood of man, it gets kind of wacky. It gets just energetic, right? It's just energy. And that's where the real finger on the nose comes in, and you have to look outside and go, all right, that really doesn't mean anything out there anymore. Nothing I see means anything. Has to be the way you deal with it. It doesn't mean a damn thing. Doesn't mean that you're going to remember that in the moment where the shit hits the fan, but it's the same lesson for all things. Like, so when you say, oh, I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to do this and that, that's fine. Change is always helpful. But why am I changing? Why am I selling my house? Why am I moving away to the country?
Yeah.
Is it to escape something I really don't know how to deal with or look at? Or is there a thing in me that says, I don't even know where I want to go to the country, I just want to go, right? Because you take your mind with you wherever you go. You can be in a big city and have lots of friends and all sorts of situations that are going to bring up stuff, which is good. Or you can move to the country, but you're going to take your mind with you everywhere you go, and you're going to have country situations, right? You'll have bears and you'll have whatever else. It'll bring it up, right? You cannot avoid the undoing of your fearful thought system. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. It doesn't matter what you try to adjust to or where you move to. And I'm not saying don't go to the country. I live in the country. It's lovely out here. It's just, the sun comes up, there's wallabies and whatever. It's nice. Goannas. All right. So same with all you guys. Francois, look at it. Right? Don't adjust to your pain. Just because you don't recognize it as your pain doesn't mean that you're not adjusting for a reason that has something to do with your relationship with God, because everything has a reason about your relationship with God. It's all that. But as you move into the non-temporal side of things, it's going to be harder to identify because you're no longer able to see it with your own eyes and look at it, and you'll be like, oh, I just feel this energy. It's like that story I just told. We were driving to West Australia and we drove through that portal where Willem had his awakening. We could feel that as we got closer to it. We could just feel this energy. It was really uncomfortable. Like it got really, really uncomfortable. It's like, what the hell is that? We could have turned around and gone the other way. Maybe we're driving into a radioactive field of energy. Maybe there's nuclear waste here or something. I don't know, whatever. Some story the mind will make up. Right? But it's always the same action of mind. No, I don't want to adjust to this. I don't want to make this real by giving it a value that I have to either avoid or do something about. I'm just going to breathe, let it go, process it, and allow the Holy Spirit to take care of this. Okay. I know people that just adjust all the time. They'll move from one town to another. They'll move from a whole country to another country to avoid their awakening. So in all of these things, look at it. And it's not that they're deliberately trying to, well, I guess they are, but they're not consciously trying to avoid their awakening. They just feel a certain way about things that's going on for them. They feel like they've got to get the hell out of there. It's time to go. It's time to move. But hang on a minute. Maybe it's just time to be still. You know, so, and I'm not saying don't move to the country, but I'm just saying look at it again. Choose again. Why am I really doing this?
Yeah.
You know? The vigilance for reacting against temptation or reacting to temptation to believe that I'm separate from God. It's increased. That vigilance becomes more increased with every leap of faith I take, because I start to value it more. I start to see how it works in my favor. It's like, wow, I've really been watching my thoughts today and I haven't let anything slip through. You know, Jesus is only asking us to do it for a few minutes a day in those lessons, 3 minutes in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. But man, eventually you start to like it and you're like, I'm happy to just watch my own sense of inner peace all day long here. And you go into a new situation with a new person or a new thing, and you'll easily get to see where you get rocked about a bit and where you lose your sense of peace, or where you feel like you have to justify yourself, or where you feel like you're making it all real. It's just a dream. It's just a dream. We deal with the dream the same way, no matter whether it seems to be a dream of massive world cataclysms or whether it's just paper cut. It's the same way you deal with it. Don't judge the form, apply the principle. So we're going to do a little exercise. Eyes closed. I don't know how we're going to do this, but close your eyes, get comfortable and take a few breaths. Just ground yourself. And we're going to do an exercise in reaching with the mind, in digging deep. Not for anything particular. We're not looking for any upsetting situations. We're not looking for any emotional, you may encounter things like that, but just keep going. All right. What I want you to do is to get a sense of pushing into your consciousness, to get a sense of heading towards a specific direction in your mind and not being distracted by it, not being distracted as you go. So when you close your eyes, all of a sudden it goes dark in there and whatever, and you begin to realize that you're only just these thoughts. I'm just mind. And you can think about things, right? The psychology of your, or the activity of your mind is to think or to remember, one or the other, which is all it does. So I want you to think about an idea that you don't know, such as God, an idea unremembered. Now look at the idea of God. Okay, hold it in your mind. Hold with your eyes closed. Hold it in your mind. My first image I get is usually like a Monty Python sort of like puppety kind of God in the sky on a chair with, you know, a scepter and a throne, and you know, like there's all sorts of things, which is a very childlike kind of innocent idea, and then that gives way to all my other ideas of what God could be. Maybe God is this illuminate kind of being that has 1,000 eyes, and those descriptions from the Bible or the book of Revelations, and maybe God is this, that, or the other. Eventually what happens is you get to a point where you just have to accept and realize within yourself, I don't know what God is. And that's the place where you wait and you stay there, right? Because that's the limit of your consciousness, where you can accept and stay in the place where I don't know what God is. I don't know what God is. I'm just going to stay in this place where I'm drawing a blank, and I'm going to wait here, because all my ideas about what God is aren't what God is. The minute I can form an idea of what I think that is, I'm wrong, because God is everything. It can't therefore be one specific idea that I hold in my mind, or even though it is my mind. You can look at the Hindu idea of God as I am that, right? Or the Hebrew idea of God, I am that. And that's what the translation of the word God means, I am. And then push beyond it. It's like you really need to have an experience of God. You're here to have an experience of God. I want to remember my Father, but I have to be able to be willing to admit that I don't remember. I don't remember. I want to remember. And what will happen is you'll feel the emotionality of not remembering and wanting to remember. It'll be this kind of paradoxical place, or this kind of end of the road sort of place. And just try and hold it there. Try and hold it there with a kind of a determination. Hold yourself in that place in your mind where I want to remember. We're not doing healing. We're not doing anything. We're just holding our mind in a presence. We're holding our mind. We're holding our idea of ourselves in relationship to what it is that we're about as our purpose in this place purposefully with determination. And try to allow it to just expand out, to feel something. You have to make experiments in your mind. It's no good to dwell on the surface. You have to be willing to push deeper into the unknown, deeper into the possibility. Because that's what you do when you take a leap of faith. You don't know how to accomplish what needs to be done. It's just going to have to be a miracle. It's the same thing in this exercise. I don't know how to hold my mind here in this place. It's going to have to be a miracle. I have interfering thoughts that come in and want to tell me about stuff and drag me away, but it's like, no, I'm determined. I don't know what God is. I've forgotten. I shouldn't say you don't know. I should say I've forgotten what God is. I want to remember. Push. And just take notice of how much determination you have to stay in that place. And take notice how easily distracted you are from that place, even by listening to my voice. It's easy to meditate and it's easy to stay calm when you're in the country or when you're in the forest or in a temple. Try and be consciously and purposefully determined about an action of mind when you're sitting on a street corner where it's noisy and where everything's interrupting you. It takes more effort. The temptation is to want to believe that this would be easier if I was somewhere quiet. This would be easier if things weren't annoying me and if things weren't disturbing my peace of mind. Hold your mind in silent readiness. Just breathe. And feel the sense of determination that you have to want to remember. Feel the sense of frustration that you have, perhaps, that you don't remember. It's the same thing. It's going to push you. It's going to build an energetic kind of angst or an energetic kind of response in you. Yes. Oh, hello. We're getting pizza. Close your eyes. Just push into it. Yeah. That's good, Anna. Paula, focus. Focus. I want to remember my father. Stay in that place. I want to remember. I want to remember. In remembering my father, I remember myself. I am one with my creator. It has to be an empty place, an empty space. I find myself at the limit of my mind. I'm done with everything. Good. Anna, that's good. Be more determined. Hold yourself there. You can feel the temptation to want to draw away. You can feel that temptation to want to adjust, to allow some kind of interfering thought to penetrate your determination. So, no, I refuse to listen to that voice. I'm staying here in this place, in this still place, in this place where I've reached the end of everything I think I know. I'm at a place where now I only have the unknown or the unremembered. And that's where we stay. Ready? Everything in time and space is an adjustment to reality. Even the stuff you think you're doing in a spiritual purpose, even the stuff you think you're doing in a collaborative venture, everything here, none of it is true. It's all a dream. There is no world. Now, if there is no world, what is there within the framework of the world that I can possibly do that it's going to bring me any benefit? Because all change occurs within my own thinking, not out there in the world. Initially, I might make changes in the world. But if the world is a projection of my own mind, where is it then that the changes are needed? And if I think I am the author of change, then all I'm going to do is change one disaster with another one. Because I can only draw upon my references from within the framework of the world and from within the framework of my own beliefs and thoughts that I've gathered to myself within the space-time continuum. I need something to occur outside of that. I need some kind of experience of something from beyond the world so that I have a new reference point for all my decision making. Stay in that place. Here I am, Father. I'm at the limit of consciousness. I don't want to go back to anything, and I can't go forward because forward is into the unremembered. I'm at the very edge. It's like being on the edge of a black hole. Do I run away from the black hole, or do I allow it to suck me through? You have no choice. You have to go through it at some point, but because you have free will, the time that that's going to take is up to you. I'm always going to tell you, let's just do it now, get it over and done with. You can never die. Tina, you can never die. That's the greatest threat to your thought system that I could possibly offer you. It's the greatest impetus for doing this activity of being still and knowing that I am God that I could ever offer you. You can never die. You're eternal. Do you really want to do this again? Do you really want to come around the sun again and be born again and do another whole lifetime in time and space again and again and again? When you're being invited to move onward and forward in the journey of the soul to new dimensions and new paradigms of life on less dense associations of light levels as you go, returning finally to the formless state. That's the journey of the soul. Everything I do in the world is either helping me to come to that threshold point in my consciousness where, fuck it, I got nothing here. There's nothing in the world. It just all ends in death. It's that one thing we don't ever want to really look at. What's the point of anything I'm doing? What is the point? May as well just die now and be reborn in Christ. Just don't think that that's going to look a certain way. Let me die now and allow Jesus to work out how it is that I resurrect, how it is that that looks like. There's nothing in the world I want. Good. It doesn't matter how much I adjust, how many times I move house, how many times I change partners. It's still the same thing. It's just me looking at my own thoughts. I'm finally sick and tired of my own thoughts. My own thoughts shit me to tears. There's nothing in them that's valuable at all. Memories of other things that have all died. and will die. So let me look at that with an open mind. Let me look at that idea reasonably. It's like, holy crap. And you begin to see how on your own you really are here. It's just me and God, me and God. There's no need for Zoom meetings. There's no need for Course in Miracles books or spiritual teachings or learnings. There's none of that. There's just me and God. There's this moment. And I'm either making every effort to push into this moment without trying to decide how I want it to look as an action of my willingness to forgive, or I'm making shit up. I'm making shit up to be fearful about and continue the dream. It's like, what the hell am I doing? Why would I even want to do that? I mean, I do it. I'm guessing you guys do it. We all kind of do it. But does it get anything? No. It just brings more of the same. And eventually you start to see how just dumb idea it is, how stupid it is. But it's got to be totally stupid. You've got to be totally done with it. Like, holy fuck, I'm just making shit up every day. I make up another story about something or someone or what I think I'm doing or should do. It's just a dream. There is no world. The real me is in eternity, waiting for this me to just get a grip. It's like putting a square peg into a square hole. It's like the Holy Spirit's waiting for me to just go, all right, put the peg in the square hole, the square peg in the square hole. And that part of me that still associates with the ego is like, oh, not yet, not yet, not yet. Something good might happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is still going to be tomorrow. But fancy waking up tomorrow awake, remembering who you are perfectly, being free of the world. Doesn't mean you're not going to be confused. Doesn't mean, you'll probably be more confused. I've read some things that, like when you remember God, that's when the real shit starts. The real shit storm starts, because you can't deny your denial then. It's obvious. So push, Tina, good. You have to realize how much you want to remember. You have to realize that. I want to remember my creative source. I want to remember what the hell I am as spirit, not this body, not this thing that's getting older and more wrinkly with lumps and bumps and hairs growing out of weird places. This is not me. I want to remember the truth. You stay in that empty place. I'm going to stay here. You're entitled to remember. You're a child of God. And eventually you just get sick and tired of not remembering. But let that be now. Let that moment of being sick and tired of not remembering be right now. And stay there with that determination and push into it. Don't remember. God damn it. Somewhere in my mind, the memory exists, but I don't remember it in my conscious level. It's not in my conscious level. But if I refuse to participate in my conscious level for long enough, what happens is I automatically slip through into my higher mind and I'll remember. But whilst the mind goes backwards and forwards and back into the temporal thoughts. That can't happen. I remember watching a movie of, I think it was Doctor Strange, but I've seen it in other movies as well, where the master of the temple won't let him in, says that he's not ready, and they kick him out. And he refuses to go. He sits on the doorstep day after day after day. No food, no water. He sits there and he sits there and he sits there, and they're watching him on the security camera. And they're like, he's still there. It's like, all right, we better let him in or he's going to die. Right? But he's at that place in his mind where that's all he's got left. If they don't let me in, I'm going to die here on the doorstep. It's not that you can never die, but that's the determination with which you stay in the I am, stay in that place of here I am, Father. I either remember or fuck it, there's nothing in the world I want. I'm going to stay here, and I am determined to stay here. Maybe at the beginning, you can only stay there for 10 seconds or 5 seconds. But with practice, you can enter into that stillness of mind and stay in that place for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. How determined am I? Don't adjust to your pain. Got to get to that place. I've got nothing else. I've got nothing else. I want to remember my Father. I want to remember my Creator. I'm just going to get my book. I want to read something. Open it. Today we practice making free our mind of all the laws you think you must obey, of all the limits under which you live, and all the changes which you think are part of human destiny. Today we take the largest single step this course requests in your advance towards its established goal. If you achieve the faintest glimmering of what love means today, you have advanced in distance without measure and in time beyond the count of years to your release. Let us together then be glad to give some time to God today and understand there is no better use for time than this. For 15 minutes, twice a day, escape from every law in which you now believe. Open your mind and rest. The world that seems to hold you prisoner can be escaped by anyone who does not hold it dear. Withdraw all value you have placed upon its meager offerings and senseless gifts, and let the gift of God replace them all. Let the gift of God replace them all. Call to your Father, certain that his voice will answer. He himself has promised this, and he himself will place a spark of truth within your mind wherever you give up a false belief, a dark illusion of your own reality and what you think love means. He will shine through your idle thoughts today and help you understand the truth of love. In loving gentleness, He will abide with you as you allow his voice to teach love's meaning to your clean and open mind. And he will bless the lesson with his love. Today, the legion of future years of waiting for salvation disappears before the timelessness of what you learn. Today, the legion of the future years of waiting for salvation disappears before the timelessness of what you learn. Let us give thanks today that we are spared a future like the past. Today we leave the past behind us, never more to be remembered, and we raise our eyes upon a different present where a future shines unlike the past in every attribute, as it's doing in Joe. I didn't tell you, Joe, when we were down at the pub the other night, you were looking amazing. Your energy was all like just totally, you know, it's a total change from when you first moved up here. Like it's really, really nice. It's good to see you so calm and peaceful and happy and just, you know, it's lovely. The world in infancy is newly born, and we will watch it grow in strength and health to shed its blessing upon all who come to learn to cast aside the world they thought was made in hate to be love's enemy. Now are they all made free along with us. Now are they all our brothers in God's love. Perhaps you think that different kinds of love are possible. Perhaps you think there is a kind of love for this, a kind for that, a way of loving one, another way of loving still another. Love is one. It has no separate parts and no degrees, no kinds nor levels, no divergencies and no distinctions. It is like itself, unchanged throughout. It never alters with a person or a circumstance. It is the heart of God and also of his Son. Love's meaning is obscure to anyone who thinks that love can change. He does not see that changing love must be impossible, and thus he thinks that he can love at times and hate at other times. He also thinks that love can be bestowed on one and yet remain itself, although it is withheld from others. To believe these things of love is not to understand it. If it could make such distinctions, it would have to judge between the righteous and the sinner and perceive the Son of God in separate parts. That's good, Anna. Paul has fallen asleep. Oh. You should sit up, Paul, and not laying down. That's it. Sit up, focus. Good. Where's Francois? Francois is laying down too. It's just a dream. Francois, this is just a dream. I know you're young and you've just entered into this process, this practice, this unlearning. But it's going to be just a dream from day one to the very last day you find yourself with a body. And if you come back to help me out, it's still going to be just a dream. The idea of guilt, it's there because you want it. The idea of specialness, it's there because you want it. Always remember that anything that you encounter that seems to run opposite to the true ways of love, it's because that's what you want. Mind is a powerful mechanism, and an unwatched mind, it's like letting your teenage child run out with your credit card. It's like you wouldn't do that. You'll end up owing the bank everything forever. This is a discipline. This is a mind training. The heart opens and we surrender to love, but the mind, what a messy piece of equipment that is. We have to discipline it. We have to train it. We have to reteach it to serve us, to serve our heart, to serve the prayer of the heart. And the prayer of the heart is to remember our Father. Little by little, day by day, we train our mind to serve the heart. And in that, heart and mind work together. They come together as one. Most people will tell you, people who have a sense of their spiritual purpose will tell you that they follow the heart. As I did, I followed my heart and I did whatever felt good. And I remember a point in my life where I made a decision, I'm not going to do anything that doesn't bring me any happiness. But of course, that was happiness on my own terms. I didn't recognize that back then, but that was happiness according to what I thought happiness was. It wasn't happiness because I'd healed all the things that I thought would make me unhappy. It was just happiness as an option against other things. But I followed my heart nonetheless. And I got further and further from society and more on the fringes of cultural acceptability. I got away from the norms until finally I reached a place where my heart was fully open. And I realized that I needed to discipline my mind. I got to the end of what my heart could show me because I'd realized that all I wanted out of my heart was to love unconditionally. That's its purpose. The purpose of the heart is to bring to my awareness the nature of unconditional love, always and in all ways. But the mind is very distracted. It likes to tell me there's a love for this and a love for that. And this will make me happy and that won't make me happy. But because mind is whole, I have to bring my whole mind into an alignment, purifying it of everything I think that doesn't serve love's purpose, which is giving, which is the unconditional extension of the creative force that I am. The whole purpose of this teaching, of this universal curriculum, is to awaken from the dream, to use it to bring my mind into a singular harmony, a singular vibration of self, just for an instant, just for one tiny instant. So that love can flow across that gap and I can remember what the truth of me is. God is a singularity. God is one. My mind seems to be everywhere. Some days I feel at peace and some days I'm all over the place. That's fine. We're in a process. But it's my job to bring my mind to peace. It's my job to return my mind to God as it was given to me. Pure. No fear in it. No falsity in it. And the more I confront it, the more I am willing to look at my fears and to feel them, to allow them to come up so that I can forgive them and release them. We're very good at pushing our fears down and pretending we don't have any fears, or pretending that it doesn't upset us. That's why Jesus says you have to seek for the blocks and find them. You got to search that shit out. It's like, no, let me be more honest. I don't yet have the memory of my father, therefore I must still have work to do. Something is blocking the way. What the hell is it? And I'm determined to find that block. I'm determined to look into the darkness, my secret agendas, my hidden hates. I want to find this stuff because I'm tired of carrying it around. I'm tired of it affecting my life and showing up in ways where I think I continually have to adjust to things. I want to be free of it. Bibiana, any questions?
Gratitude.
No questions? That's good.
I am responsible. And I'm grateful for every opportunity to see when I choose with my own choice to want to be distracted in order not to feel unease within me.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's all of my making. But the gentleness, not the judgment.
No.
Love judges not. Love sees it only in its own light. And there's only I love that word, singular.
Yeah.
Reality is singular. There are no differences, no degrees.
When I had my awakening, I realized that was reality. It was truth, and I didn't want anything else. It's like it felt like home. And when I found myself back here in this world with work to do, it was the worst thing imaginable. I didn't want to be here. I was like a child throwing a tantrum in my mind. I'm like, no. It's like, what just happened? I just remembered home, and I remembered eternity, and everyone was there and everything. I didn't want to be back here. It's like, it was horrific. But little by little.
Just the thought to know, to remember.
Yeah.
When I allow myself to own responsibility of my own choice, and to know there's other way to experience it. There's other way to experience it.
Yes.
And the choice is mine.
Yes, exactly.
And it's for me. It's a gift.
Know that. It's good
a
when
gift. It's a gift that unease, that suffering what I create within my mind. And therefore experience is actually, again, not that there's power over me and I'm a victim, and lately for myself is which role again I'm choosing to play, which role I assign to this neutral situation, when in reality it's love everywhere, being available. And I am like a little child, want to have a tantrum and insist, but no, I am a victim who needs to be understood or fixed or redeemed or forgiven or whatever, all of those stories in my head. But now the gentleness sees it. And the gentleness within my heart says, okay, bring it all. Bring it all. I will hold it. And we'll look at it gently in truth. Yes, I practice that. Yes, I insisted this is who I am and this is what is the world according to that. But I am not a movie projector. There's life expressing itself through whatever form it does. There's life flowing. And there are no differences. There's no innocence and guilt. Essence of everything is guaranteed innocence. And in my story, in my mind, differences, more or less, and all of that. But it came for healing. I am responsible.
A kind of love for that.
Yes, and lately, that ego system, that thought system of that young mind, let's say, of course, it never worked. The peace is not found there. Gentleness that judges and is patient. And remind me once again, all resistance is that belief that I am not worth consistent effort. Because in my story, I am unworthy. And I don't deserve to be redeemed because I am guilty beyond redemption. I'm that special. All of that role, it's for me to look at and ask, is that of value? Is it true? Is it really true? And only love that judges not. The gentleness within, not out there, not in a book. Yes, your words create a feeling within me. And that feeling alone tells me that within me something knows.
Right.
And that's all. It's always experience.
It's always experience. It has to be experiential.
Yes, always. It's not in the head.
The concepts are nothing.
I created all the concepts.
That's right. In that I am the projector.
Yeah, projector. and
here's the flip, right? So I'm not the projector, but I'm also not the projector.
Exactly, because
love is all inclusive.
Yes.
Even of my false beliefs about myself, it judges not, but works with me to bring those to it, flip them over, to change them over.
And a space in which, and I don't know, even it's not even space that mind can understand, the one who wants to see everything as a form, but everything is happening really within as experience. So even that what is projected on need to have something to project it on. And all of that is that word in what you said, the same thing. Mind can only serve. It has been given me. That ability to project on within me has been given me to use, to recognize what is true. Yeah, it's always inside job. Turn within.
Good.
For myself.
Paula.
I'm responsible. Thank you.
What about you? You have a question? No. Francois?
Yeah, there's always some questions, and yeah, it's just this week especially there has been such deep moments of peace. Like it's beyond
good.
Peace.
Good.
Yeah, it's been good. And then there's all these immediately after, it's always these guilt, doubt thoughts. I'm just, and finally just making peace with it, with the thoughts that kind of undermine the experience. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, just allowing them, kind of not going into depression or whatever. So that some wisdom has come through, which I'm grateful for.
Good. Your thoughts are like an oddly assorted procession going by.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like.
That's how Jesus says to think of them. Think of your thoughts as like an oddly assorted procession going by. but it's all the one procession. It doesn't matter what the oddly is in this thought or the other thought or the next thought. I'm simply watching. And in that, I'm refusing to interact with my thoughts and to give them an emotional value. Not that they don't already have one, but the totality of emotional value that I'm looking for is my belief in separation, not the particulars in the thoughts. I might have one thought that's more disturbing to me than others, and so I need to look at that and be forgiving of that so that it becomes just another oddly assorted procession. But the whole procession is validated by one thought: separation from God. When I sit still, when I be still in my own meditative effort, and I allow my thoughts to be there, I allow them to go past in the observer's state, they don't have any power over me. There's this thought about losing a job. Viviana had that one before. There's this thought about moving house. There's this thought about, they don't mean anything. Those thoughts don't mean anything. But of course, I'm going to find those ones where I do think they mean something. It's like, fuck no, that thought's really got a hold of me, and that's where you have to be honest. It's like, no, I do think there's something to worry about. I do think there's something to be fearful of.
That's exactly what Jesus reminded me of this week, especially because I've been watching my mind and those thoughts. And the thought came in, the ego is it's ingenious. It's literally, it's made by the Son of God. It's ingenious. That's what the big word is. That's why it's cunning. It's all those things. So that's where.
Suspicious, vicious, cunning, and baffling.
Yeah. And ingenious.
Projects everything with forethought and malice. There is nothing of ego consciousness that you should need to value. And you can see that one thought of ego consciousness, even your own loving thoughts, are the same as any other thought. You won't want any of them, and you will stand silently and ready to hear the thoughts of God that you share with God. I would rather have the thoughts that I think with the universe than any of my thoughts, especially my loving thoughts.
Yeah.
My loving thoughts are usually going to be contrived and based upon, oh, we got rain, based upon unloving thoughts as a reference. And I don't want to do that anymore. Why would I want to continue in that stupidity? I'm still not guilty for it, but it's like it doesn't really make any sense now I see what I'm doing. It's like, oh, I see. Just going around in a circle chasing my tail. I'm just going to allow the universe to show me, and I'm not going to try and preempt what that's going to look like. I'm just going to enter into this next moment despite my fears. And I'm not going to try to control what I think the next moment ought to look like based on despite my fears or based on my fears. I'm just going to do it with a wholly open heart and a wholly open mind. Here I am, Lord, I'm just going to show up. Right? All of those thoughts in the oddly assorted procession that go by, you might have a thought of moving house or losing my job or getting sick or whatever it is. All of those thoughts, they're the same thought. I believe that I'm separate from God. That's what they actually are. If you take the individual covering off of each individual thought and look at what its foundation is, the foundation is, I think I'm separate from God here. Right? The solution to that is I'm not. Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Spirit
that's why
goes
it
with
says.
me everywhere I go.
Thank you, brother. This is again that lesson. I'm never upset for the reason I think. That's
Right.
core of this. Yeah, because it's all these problems, and it's usually I'm separate from God. I've lost my father.
That's always the core belief. The core belief behind any illusion is that I think I'm separate from God. And I'm learning through faith and learning to trust in taking leaps of faith. By the experiences I have and the witnesses to truth that seem to show up around my willingness to take leaps of faith, that I'm not separate.
Yeah.
I take a leap of faith, and eventually those leaps of faith add up. Faith is its own reward. The more leaps of faith I take, the more I'm willing to allow God to show me, then the stronger I become in the way of that. And it brings me into a place where I can't deny the presence or the support of that anymore in my life. And I just get to a place where I want to know. I want to know this power that's supporting me, this higher power. I understand that I'm supported by a higher power. I understand there's another way to see the world. But now I want to know what that is.
Yeah.
And when you want to know more than you want the world, you can be shown. But you have to empty the cup. The cup has to be emptied so that it can be filled. You can't have remnants of time and space now. I'm willing to forgive my whole world. I'm willing to forgive all my beliefs, everything, my whole idea of myself. I'm willing to tip out my cup entirely so that God can fill it. The universe can fill it. The spirit can fill it. It's like Jesus says in the Course, love flows into any place that has been left empty and willing to receive it. That any place is the place in my mind where the idea of separation seems to exist. That idea of separation is the foundation for everything in the world that I've made, where I think it shows up here and there and everywhere where love is absent. That oddly assorted procession, it's the one procession, the good and the bad, the monkeys and the lions. I like the cute little monkeys and the performing dogs, but the lions are a bit scary. It's the same circus. It's the same circus.
Stillness. That's why stillness.
Right. I'm done with the circus. I'm just going to be still.
That's Amen. Thank you.
I don't want any of my thoughts. And you know the funny thing, when your mind is totally peaceful and you have no thoughts in there, you can still function and do everything you need to do during the day, make your cup of tea and coffee and go to work and do whatever. You don't need those thoughts because the script is already written, and God's script, the plan of your salvation, is wordless. It doesn't have individual thoughts. It's the one thing, and it revolves simply around your happiness, simply around the acceptance of peace and happiness within yourself. That's what it is that's on offer. It's not really on offer. It's just your natural state. It's like everything, all my thoughts only ever reflect separation.
Yeah.
Lesson 10, my thoughts do not mean anything, including the ones you think of in the practice period, including your spiritual thoughts. My thoughts do not mean anything. It's like imagine your thoughts, like a football team. There's you and you got to get the ball to the other end of the field, and there's like 12 other players or whatever there, and they're all your thought. This guy's bigger than that guy. Maybe I'll run towards this guy because he's smaller. I can probably get past him better. And this guy's pretty big. And then these guys, there's no gap there. There's a bit of a gap over there. It's like, I just got to stop trying to make a strategy and just run. Just run. And just trust that I'm going to go straight through and I'll make the touchdown. I'm not running based on my own ideas of what I think that ought to look like. I'm just going to say yes, and I'm going to go. I'm going to listen, learn, and do. I'm doing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a difficult thing to actually put into practice when you're in the thick of your emotional stuff, you know. Joe said to me the other night, I need to go and cry because I had all this emotionality coming up and whatever. And that's a true thing. You know, sometimes you need to have those emotional release. You need to have that thing, whether it looks like crying or laughing or whatever it looks like, it doesn't really matter, but it's the processing of it. And sometimes it can just pile up. Sometimes all that can pile up. The whole thing just becomes too much. You know, it's like without my brother, I couldn't do this. Without those who walk to God on the way of truth with me, I couldn't do this. You know, it's really a beautiful thing. We're all teachers, we're all learners, we're all about our Father's business at whatever. Thoughts cannot be without effects. If I interact with my thoughts, then I'm going to also be interacting with the effects. The tendency is when I experience the effects of my thoughts, which is emotions, all thoughts are of the ego, and all thoughts have emotional content. When I interact with my thoughts, I cannot not get the results of my thinking, which is the emotional response. I can deny the emotional response, which is what denial is. I can deny that I'm feeling a certain way about something. I'm okay, I'll be fine, I'll be all right. But eventually it bottles up and it reaches this kind of threshold, like when you shake up a can of fizzy pop, you know, and then psh, it goes everywhere. It's got to come out. It's better to admit to one's emotional baggage than to allow it to build up, I think. I mean, if you have to let it build up, then so be it. But you get to the point where the prayer of the heart is all you have left. I want to remember my Father. There's nothing else in the world I want. Pina, any question? Anything? I'm just going to read one more thing. I don't do usually so much reading. Lesson 256. God is the only goal I have today. The way to God is through forgiveness here. There is no other way. The way to God is through forgiveness here. There is no other way. If sin had not, and sin is error, it's not like a sin like you naughty person. If sin had not been cherished by the mind, what need would there have been to find a way to where you are? Who would still be uncertain? Who could be unsure of who he is? And who would yet remain asleep in heavy clouds of doubt about the holiness of him who God created sinless? Here we can but dream. But we can dream we have forgiven him in whom all sin remains impossible, and it is this we choose to dream today. God is our goal. Forgiveness is the means by which our minds return to him at last. And so, our Father, we come to you in your appointed way. We have no goal except to hear your voice and find the way your sacred word has pointed out to us. We have no goal except to hear your word and find the way your sacred word has pointed out to us. Nothing exists. Good. Anna, breathe. All right, I love you guys. That's it. Short one. Anyone got anything? Kev? Joe? No. Peace.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you.
I love. Mhm.